Hello, it's Victoria from Coastal Themes, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the 5 most common mistakes that you may have made before when building your website on Framer and how to avoid these going forward. So here's a quick reminder and let's jump into it. So the first one is probably the most obvious one I see people forgetting. Sometimes I even forget to do this myself. So this is to make sure you are updating your metadata on your website. So I am looking at one of Coastal Themes' very own themes here. I've kind of customized it to where I am happy and I'm ready to push it live, and these are the final things I need to look at. So starting with each page. So if you click the 3 dots on a page, you'll see settings, and when you come into this you can see the title of the page description, and the URL. This is kind of your page metadata. It's everything that will show up on search engines and also when you link the page from social media, for example. So this is that preview text that you very much notice when you're sharing it with other people. So you can simply click into these boxes, into these inputs, and put in your title and also your description. You can also use dynamic tags in these blocks to link information or other pages or general site information. So remember to hit save when you've made these changes, and to do this for each page you can just click through and adjust the content as needed. Then you'd want to jump into the general site settings and you can adjust the site title and the site description for all the pages, and this is what will display if you don't change the individual page's settings. So make sure that this is accurate with your site title and description. Then the next thing I mentioned was the favicon. So favicon is that little icon that appears in your browser next to your site's name. So you can see here, this is what you will see, and you can upload two. You can upload a light theme and a dark theme, and they're small, they're tiny little square images, and you can upload this, make it super quickly. So this is a perfect place to use your logo icon or a condensed version of your logo. And then you'll also want to update your social preview, and this is what you'll see on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter when you're sharing the link, or even if you're sending it to someone on WhatsApp, for example, you have that big preview image, and this is where you can change that. And it's a nice rectangular image, so there's lots of space for you to kind of showcase your brand in here. So that is about metadata and everything that's kind of visible when you're sharing your site. The next thing that is most commonly missed is, well, we've landed straight on it, is 404 pages, privacy policies, and terms and conditions pages. So these are the pages that are often linked in the footer, and because they're kind of very generic pages, you can often kind of look past this and forget to update the content here. So whether that means going on to ChatGPT or an AI of your choice and generating something that suits your brand, or using the one that's been provided to you on the theme and just adjusting the name or taking out certain clauses you don't want, you can create these pretty quickly. There's also a few paid sites which you can use to create terms, like Termly, for example. And there may be some other policies you might need to add, like cookie policies, or shippings and returns if you kind of are an e-commerce site. So many policies you might forget, and whether you're adding them in the CMS or you might have individual pages you can edit straight into, you need to make sure that you're updating these so you're in line with kind of all the legal requirements in the country you are publishing your site from. The next thing I want to touch on is something that you're pretty much covered for if you're doing this on a template. So if you're building your site from a template, such as one of our coastalthemes.com templates, we give you all the breakpoints you need. So large desktop, tablet, and phone size, and you can test on all of these sizes and see what your site looks like on a variety of screen sizes. So we kind of cover you there, and most templates do because they're all required by Framer to list on the marketplace to have all the breakpoints built. But if you are creating a theme from scratch, make sure that you've got mobile, at the very least mobile, covered. We like to do kind of large desktop, small desktop, tablet, and mobile to make sure that it kind of scales up and down really well, because you can see here you just want it to be quite seamless and stack when things need to stack. If you need to use carousels, you can do this in mobile, for example. And if you are designing your theme using auto layout and kind of stacks, then when you kind of enable your other breakpoints, this smart layout approach will kind of automatically relay out your elements. So you might only have to change a few settings. And that's why it's so important to design with auto layout and design using stacks and grids. So that kind of neatly takes me into the next point and the next mistake I see, which is having quite messy layers. So you can see here all my layers are nested and I've got all my sections organized into hero section, how it works, our project, blog, and footer. And these are all very neatly arranged and very well named. And keeping it this way allows not only you to work on your site much easier, it also allows other people who may need to work on your site in the future be able to identify where everything is. So it's really common that if you create something new, it will be called frame 1,100,250. So like you can have so many different layers and so many different frames, similar to if you've ever worked on Figma and you've got loads of frames and loads of layers and it just kind of gets lost and there's loads of numbers and it's too late to rename them. Rather name them well and structure them and nest them well from the beginning, because then you won't have to deal with this later when you're faced with having to restructure the site. It is especially helpful when you're doing responsive design because some elements obviously carry across all the pages. So you can see here this discovery call is visible on tablet, it's visible on mobile. You can see it's slightly highlighted even though I've selected it on tablet. It's visible on small desktop and on large desktop, but some elements hide and show depending on the breakpoint. So making sure you've named things properly allows you to work responsively a lot easier. So now the last thing, and something you should consider while you're building, rather all at the end, is looking at speed. And we recommend you do a kind of page speed insights test before you go live to make sure that there's no major things inhibiting the speed of your site or putting it in the red, basically. So these are things such as large images. So if you aren't compressing your images or aren't converting them to WebP format, they might be very large, and that's hundreds of megabytes to gigabytes, and this will slow down the loading of your site so much and be horrible from a user experience perspective. So we really recommend you putting everything into a WebP format, and that is the most optimized format for web. When it comes to videos, only certain Framer tiers allow you to upload videos straight to Framer. So we do recommend, just from a point of like optimization and speed, that you host your videos elsewhere. So whether you're using YouTube or Vimeo or even kind of Amazon Cloud Space, kind of wherever you're hosting them, it's probably a better choice because it's managed much better and you're not relying on kind of all the assets sitting in your Framer site. The final thing you'll notice, and something you'll also notice on our themes, is that we do have a lot of animation, but very small pieces of animation, like things coming into view when you open the page, and mostly just on-scroll animations. Although you can get quite complex with animations, there's loads of different effects you can look at. There's lots of things you can do with parallax and lots of layers. You can also use components from across the web, from other resources, and so on. And the more you add of these, the more kind of slow your website will get. So just keep that in mind before you go ahead and create the most conceptual animated site that's very interactive and you can move things around and so on. This does affect site speed. So no doubt that with these tips, once you are ready to publish, you will be putting your site way ahead of all the other Framer sites in existence just by looking at speed, looking at your metadata, making sure your layers are organized well, you're looking at responsive design, and you're getting those final touches like the policy pages and terms and conditions all covered. And there's one last thing I just want to add, is to make sure that you check all your links and make sure all your buttons are going to the right places before you put it live, especially if you're working from a template. There's nothing worse than going onto a site, clicking on a link and it not working, or it going to some generic page or somewhere weird. So make sure you're replacing your links. Is there anything else I've missed out, or anything that you would consider when publishing your site? What is a mistake that you've made? Drop that in the comments. I'm keen to hear your thoughts. But those are the top 5 mistakes that you might make on Framer, and this is how you can solve them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.